That's defense attorney, former federal prosecutor Shan Wu. Shan, always good to see you. You know, as we heard from Evan there, a skeptical audience is how he phrased it in talking about that three-judge panel. I know you've said that the Trump team's argument is fairly weak in your view. Even if this panel agrees, the reality is we are likely not done. This will keep moving forward and could end up before the Supreme Court. Is that inevitable, you think, at this point?
Oh, I think that is inevitable. Whichever way it goes, it'll have to go to the Supreme Court. And I think that the Supreme Court's probably going to fast track it as much as they can. I mean, the D.C. Circuit's been moving pretty quickly, but the issues here, certainly Trump's team wants to drag it out, so they'll certainly go to the Supreme Court, and the issues probably deserve them to take a look at it.
Deserve the Supreme Court to take a look at it. I mean, what do you anticipate that outcome could be? Because we know how important, how lasting the implication of that decision will be.
I think that the Supreme Court, if I'm reading my tea leaves right, is probably going to rule against the Trump team here for the reasons that the district court laid out very well in that very well analyzed opinion. And I think for the same reasons the D.C. Circuit is going to rule against him, which is he's put all his eggs just in one basket, which is this notion that as a former president he can still control the privilege, which is simply wrong. Not only that, they've also kind of engaged in some hyperbole by saying, oh, if you allow this waiver of executive privilege to be decided, it's going to tear apart the whole fabric of the separation of powers. And that's really wrong. This is an extraordinary incident. Congress certainly has to look at it, but it's the very fact that it's extraordinary that makes it less likely to have substantial use going forward. It's just not going to arise all that often, and I think the Supreme Court's going to be aware of that. They're really going to focus on the question of who should be deciding, a current president or a former president, and the answer is certainly the current president.
In terms of that separation, in terms of the balance of power, how important is that for this court?
I think it's always very important for the district courts as well as the Court of Appeals. I think that's probably why the Supreme Court would take the case. I mean, there's this argument that the balance of powers will be torn apart, but I don't think they're going to see it that way. I mean, actually, the process itself shows that it's working its way properly through the system. There's basically a disagreement within the executive branch right now, where the current executive, the president, says this should go forward. Congress wants it. A former executive says no. It's exactly the kind of thing courts should determine.
You know, I can't help but notice you said that's why you think the Supreme Court would take it up. I mean, is there any scenario that you envision where the Supreme Court does not?
I think that's very unlikely. I mean, they don't have, they're not required to take up cases. It's discretionary on their part, so it's theoretically possible. That would be quite a slap in the face to the Trump team.
It would be quite a statement.
Yeah, it would be quite a statement. And it is possible. I think it depends on how well reasoned and how articulated the reasons are put forth by the D.C. Circuit if they rule against them. But, the Supreme Court has discretionary jurisdiction. They don't have to take it.
Well, we will be watching. Shan, always good to see you. Thank you.
Good to see you. Thanks.